day, everyone, and welcome to the RIB CCS webinar. My name is Magnus Johannes van Rensburg. I'm one of the senior technical consultants here at RIB CCS South Africa. If you have any questions regarding the Candy Cloud solution, please reach out to your local RIB CCS office. Today, we'll be discussing what is new in Qto 4.2. QTO assists with electronic on-screen measurements that directly link to the Candy Bill of Quantities, saving you time and improving your accuracy. Qto 4.2 was developed and designed to enhance your on-screen takeoff experience and help create accurate foundation for your estimates. I will aim to keep the webinar within the allowed time frame of approximately 30 to 45 minutes. Due to the large number of people logged in, we will not be able to answer any questions during the presentation. However, please submit your questions during the webinar with the provided function on screen. We will collate these questions and provide feedback accordingly. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and you'll receive a link in the follow-up email to view the recording. We host these webinars once a month on various Candy topics, and should you not be able to attend the webinar at the given time frame, please still register for the webinar as you will automatically receive a link to view the webinar recording. Now, without any further delay, let's get started with exploring what is the power of Qto 4.2. In this webinar, we're going to cover the QTO New Look. That will include the new drawing tool ribbon bar, the new takeoff sheet, the takeoff list, the Toasties, and the area deduct tool. We will also look at the language translation, the default sizing for line and count tools, the keyboard shortcuts, the transparency tool, the mouse sensitivity, and the multi-select measurements for cumulative on-screen quantities. Now let's go into the live demo. First, I'm going to show you the QTO New Look, which will include the new drawing tool ribbon bar, the takeoff sheet, the takeoff list layout, and the Toasties. So, as we all should be aware, QTO is accessed within Candy from the QTO tab in the latest version of Candy on the QTO Manager, or in Valuations under QTO. Now, before I access QTO, I just want to show you that if you don't have QTO installed yet, or you want to install the new 4.2 version, what you need to do is you go to Support, and you'll go to Website, and you'll go to the QTO home page. That will take you to this page. You can download the QTO 4.2 beta version over here. Beta version simply refers to the version of the software. So before we release software, we do alpha testing, and alpha testing is done internally, which we have done with Qto 4.2. And then the first version we release is a beta version that will be tested in real world scenarios by our clients. So the next version we release after this one will no longer be a beta version, but just take note that the Qto 4.2 version that you will be downloading is a beta version. This beta version link will also be included in your email that you receive after this webinar. You can also download the older Qto 4.1 version over here, the release notes, the user guide, and the system requirements. Back in Candy, I just want to show you, if you've got more than one version of Qto installed, you can go to Tools, and you can say use the latest version, or whatever version you have installed will be listed here, and you can then tell the system to use this version or the 4.2 version. It is important to note that Qto is not backwards compatible. That means that if you had a project that was measured in Qto 4.1 and you install Qto 4.2 and you then access that project, it will be upgraded to 4.2 and you cannot then take it back to Qto 4.1. However, there's no need to stress. We have tested this and the project should upgrade seamlessly. So if you upgrade a previous version of QTO into a later version of QTO, it should upgrade seamlessly. Your drawing should still be there, all your measurements should still be there. It is a seamless upgrade. So the only restriction that you need to be aware of is you can't go back to your older version once you have upgraded the project to a newer version. If you are a bit worried with regards to this, you can simply duplicate the Candy job before you upgrade your first project. And if that project then works fine, then going forward, you can just do the upgrades. But if you duplicate or back up the Candy job before you do it, that backup version will be able to still open in version 4.1 in this example. However, the version that has been opened in 4.2, again, just to reiterate that, won't be able to open back in 4.1. All right, but as I said, the upgrade will be seamless. The drawings and measurements and everything that you have done beforehand will be available in the newer version. Okay, now without any further delay, let's look at the new QTO 4.2 version that the webinar is actually about. So you'll notice it looks a bit differently, and the first topic we then are covering is the new interface. So just to show you, before I show you the new interface, I just want to go to this link, which you can find on our help center. And this link will then show you the difference between QTO 4.1 and QTO 4.2. So this is quite nice. If you want to reference this, you can find it on the Help Center. You can just look for this document. You'll then notice the measurement bill in the older version of QTO, view 4.1, looks like this, and in 4.2, it looks like this. So the only difference is there's a bit more colors available in the new 4.2, where in 4.1 you only had these one heading colors available. Also on the drawing tools, now this is the big one. In QTO 4.1, your drawing tools was on the left-hand side of your screen. We had your calibrate, count, length, line segment, area, area selector, arch, ruler, snap, realign, select, rectangular zoom, reset zoom, zoom in, zoom out, pan, plot, rotate clockwise and anti-clockwise, rotate markup, layers, and then text annotation. In QTO 4.2, the tools are at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see that they are a lot more modern and colorful, and they are more user-friendly in my opinion as well. So over here you have your calibrate, your count, your line segment, your area selector, your arch, your text tool, your snap, your realign, ruler, select, rectangular zoom, reset zoom, zoom in, zoom out, pan, plot, rotate clockwise or anti-clockwise, rotate markup, and layers. So you'll see in 4.2, which we're going to look at now, it looks quite significantly different than it was in 4.1. Then the takeoff sheets. In QTO 4.1, the takeoff sheets look like this, where they have in 4.2 now a bit more color, and the comments column has been removed, and I'll explain that in my webinar a bit later. Then the takeoff list in QTO 4.1, you'll notice the continue and the color of your measurement are at the far end, and the takeoff sheet has this little bookie icon to open it up. In 4.2, the continue button is the very first one, so it has been moved to the front, which I'll explain a bit later, but makes it a lot easier to find the continue tool. And the color has also been moved forward, and the bookie has been replaced with this button that looks like a email attachment, which I'm also going to explain a bit later in the webinar. So you see the difference there and there. Then we just show you the continue button has moved. There you can also download the release notes here, the 4.2 user guide, and the QTO workshop information. So again, the biggest change here is the drawing tool, which are now at the bottom of your screen instead of the right-hand side. So again, this link can be found on the Help Center, where you can then view the differences between the two versions. All right, so now to get into QTO. So firstly, we have our takeoff. On the takeoff, we still have our measurement, which will show you your candy bill in a read-only format. You then have your drawing list, where you have your list of drawings. You have your attach button, which you can use to attach your drawing. You've got your folders, where you have your measurement folders, your views, your templates, your takeoff list, which is grayed out because I don't have a drawing open, my reports, and my drawing comparison tool. So not much has changed here from Qto 4.1 to 4.2. If I open my drawing, you'll notice that the drawings now have a little icon that show that they are PDF drawings. So that is a change that was made in 4.2. And instead of having to right click on the drawing and open, I can now click on this little PDF icon and that will open up the drawing. And you'll see I have some measurements in there. And I also want to open up my second floor. And lastly, I would also like to open up my third floor. And what you'll notice is the moment that the drawing opens up, the takeoff list opens up as well. So that is a new Qto 4.2 function. So when you open up your drawing, the takeoff list is immediately open. You don't need to go and click to open it. And the takeoff list is then also brought to the front. On the takeoff list, you still have your same information. The only change is that the continue tool is now at the front and the bookie icon was changed to a attach icon. This then, next we have our settings. On the settings, we still have the quantity type, which has stayed the same. We also now have more colors available on the BOQ, and that is what I meant when I explained that earlier on the cell on the help center link. So if I select dark blue, for example, you'll see it's going to jump to the bill, and the bill now has a dark blue color. If I select gray, you'll notice the bill has a gray color. However, even though I've changed the color here, my candy bill of quantities is still the same, and it sticks to the settings that it has in candy. So this bill over here is a read-only bill that you can edit using, you can change the colors of the headings and the theme and so on using these preset options over here, but it does not affect your candy bill. All right, so that's also one of the interface changes. Then we've got the transparency and the mouse sensitivity tools. I'm going to explain that a bit later. We've got the default tool sizes. We're going to explain that later, and the translation I'm going to explain later. Then on layouts, so with layouts, we've also changed quite a bit. You'll notice that when I opened up QTO, all of these icons was open already. My measurements, my drawing list, my attach, my drawing list, my folders, my views, and my templates. The reason for that is under the layouts, we now have an auto save button. So that means that if this button says on, that means the layout that I have is automatically saved as my default layout. And when I open up QTO, that layout will be loaded by default. If I click reset, it will reset to the default layout when QTO is installed. If I click restore, it will restore to the layout that I have when I installed or when I saved last using the autosave. So this was the layout I just had. If I turn the autosave off, that means that I will have to go and manually open up these icons when I launch QTO, and I would then have to save my layout, and then the restore will restore to my layout. I like having the autosave on. So I'm going to put it back on, which means that my layout will automatically be saved. Then under support, we've also got update. We've got send. You can send your logs if you need support. Ask for help if you need support. Check errors if you need to check for errors, and manual and release note, which has also basically stayed the same. Just to mention, if you click on release note, that will also take you to our help center, where you can then find the release notes for QTO 4.2. And if you click to view these release notes and the user guide, so here you can see the QTO 4.2 user guide, and if you click here to view the Qto 4.2 release notes, you'll notice that will take you to the QTO website. Sorry. If you click on the release notes for Qto 4.2, that will take you to the release notes, and in the release notes you'll notice everything I'm going to talk about today is in here as well. There's the language translation, the new drawing tools, the deduct tool. So everything that I talk about in this webinar is in this document as well, so you can go and refer back to that. That is then the release notes. Back to my takeoff list. I've already spoken about the takeoff list, that the continue tool is now at the front, which means that if I would like to continue measuring this wall, I can just select the wall, click the continue tick, and I can then measure the rest of that wall until I get to the next point. That is then makes it a lot easier to find that tool. Then we have the attach button. So you'll notice if I hover my mouse over this attach button, it says not linked to the BOQ. So if you click on this attach button, it will open up the takeoff sheet, but it also then identifies for you if this takeoff has been linked to the BOQ yet or not. So if I go to my second floor drawing and I click on this one, you'll see it shows fully linked to the BOQ. So there's three statuses. The first one is not linked, the second one is fully linked, and the third one is if I open up this takeoff sheet and I remove the calculation here, it goes orange and it says linked without supplying formulas. So it's completely linked, not linked, and incompletely linked. That's the three statuses. So you'll notice here, if I open up the takeoff sheet, it looks fairly similar. It just has colors up here. So up here it tells you it's the area tool, it tells you the name, this is the first floor slab, and it tells you the value over here. It then gives you the ability to copy this to a template, increase and decrease your quantity decimals, your result decimals, print this, zoom to active view, and then pin this. So this pin is also very nice. It means that you can move this to another screen, or you can keep it on this screen and just put it where you want it, and you can pin it, and it will then say successfully pinned, and it will always open up over here. Then the variables still remain the same, and the linking to the BOQ also still remain the same. You can use the drop down, or you can drag and drop from the measurement bill. Then the formulas, it's the area times the thickness. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the comments, we have removed the comments column. It is now a little icon like looks like this. And if there is a comment behind a measurement or a variable or a dimension, you'll see it's blue. So these gray ones, there's no comments in there. But if I click on this blue one and I click on the drop down, you'll see there's a comment that says slab 130 millimeters thick. So the icon will identify as blue to show you there's a comment, and then you need to click on it to view or edit the comment, which saves a lot of space on this takeoff sheet. And that means that you can move it, make it a lot smaller, making it a lot easier to utilize this, especially when working on one screen. So that is then the new takeoff sheet and the takeoff list layout. Lastly is then the Toasties. So you would have noticed when I pinned that, I got a message over here. If I click here on snap, it will also give me that message. Information snapping has been turned off. If I turn it back on, snapping has been turned on. This is then the Toasties. So all your messages that normally would have popped up in the middle of your screen are now going to pop up down here in the right hand side as what the software guys call Toasties. All right, next let's look at the area deduction tool. So the area deduction tool, you will notice that this drawing over here, the measurement has some openings out of it. So in the past, what you normally would have done in QTO is you would have measured the area and you would have done another measurement for these openings, and you would have then deducted them in the takeoff linked in the BOQ item. You would have deducted it, the one area from the other. Now in Qto 4.2, we've got a dedicated deduct tool. And how that tool works is I would need to click on this area, and you'll notice that I can then right click and select deduct. And if I go to this one opening that's left, I can click around it and right click to end, and the area will be cut out and the value will change 1696.421. If I remove this, so I delete the point and I delete that point, I remove the deduction I did, you'll notice it goes to 1722.299. If I go again, deduct, and I select that area, let's notice the value change there, 1722, right click 1695. Also, if I right click and I say deduct and I try and go outside the area, it will tell you the deduct can only be done within the bounds of the area. So that is then the deduct tool. I've already deducted these other three openings. So if there was any other openings, you would have just right clicked, deduct, and then deduct around them. Next is then the language translation. Now the language translation is very simple. If you go to settings, over here we've got English United Kingdom. If I click on the drop down and I select Portuguese, this will then change all the Candy buttons, layout, support, everything relevant will change to Portuguese. Now to do this, I need to select Portuguese, close QTO and open it up again. But due to the time that takes, I'm not going to do it, but it does work. So you click on this drop down, select Portuguese, close QTO, open it up again, and then QTO will be translated into Portuguese. I also can't speak Portuguese, so I'm going to stick to English. Next, we have the default sizing for the line and count tool. Now, this is also very simple. If you go to your settings and you go to the drawing tool settings and you hover your mouse over this one, it will say line weight. And if you go to this one, it will say count weight. So that means that if I go to this drawing, for example, and I do a count tool, you'll notice the size is 6 pt, which corresponds with what I have there. If I change the size from 6 pt to 3 pt and I launch the count tool again, it will now be 3 pt. So this is just a nice function so that you can set the default size that you want and you don't have to change it every time due to the set default that's in there. The same goes for the line tool. If I click on the line tool, the current weight is 6 pt. If I change this to 10 pt and I do the line tool again, you'll see the line weight changes to that default. So that's another nice Qto 4.2 enhancement. Then the keyboard shortcuts. Now this is my second favorite enhancement. The deduct tool is my favorite. So the keyboard shortcuts, if you go to your measurement tools down here and you hover your mouse over them, you'll see the count tool, the shortcut key is a C. The length tool is an L. The shortcut key for the segment is a P. The area is an A. And the area selector is an S. And the arch is an H. So if I press C, for example, you'll notice my icon changes to the count tool. And then I can go and count these columns over here. So I can select those 4 columns, right click, end the measurement. It will then add the measurement to the takeoff list and I can rename it to structural columns. All right, so there's my structural columns. Then, and that's then the keyboard shortcuts on the measurement tools. The last 2 keyboard shortcuts I want to mention, I'm going to first use this length tool over here. So if I just click on this length tool, I showed you earlier that if I click continue here, I can continue the measurement. But we actually added a shortcut key where I can click on the measurement and then press Q on my keyboard. And that initiates the continue tool, which is also quite nice. I can then just go and do that. And then the last keyboard shortcut I want to mention, This has been actually in QTO for a while, but I just think it's worth mentioning. If I press escape on my keyboard, it will go 1 point back. We call it grip points. So if I press escape again, it will go another point back, escape again, it will go back to where I started. If I press escape again, it will remove all the measurements and just have the measurement tool active, and then I can redo the measurement, fixing maybe a mistaken point that was put down, or if I make a mistake while measuring, I can just press escape and fix it while measuring. All right, so that is then the keyboard shortcuts. Then the transparency tool. So the transparency tool, I'm going to go to my first floor drawing again, and you'll notice that all my measurements have the same level of transparency at the moment. If I turn on the transparency tool, you'll notice that only the measurement that I have selected at the moment is highly visible. The rest are slightly transparent. And that is then what the transparency tool does. It is a function that was requested by users, and that is then what it does. If you click on the takeoff list on the entrance slab, for example, you'll see that one is then more clear and the rest is less clear. So you can do it on the takeoff list or on the drawing. So if I click on these the beams, for example, you'll see that all the beams will get highlighted. Or if I click on the slab will be more clear than compared to the other takeoffs. All right, then the mouse sensitivity. So in QTO, you use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and you press your mouse wheel to move your drawing around. Now, if you have a very nice mouse or a gaming mouse, for example, your mouse zooming might be difficult, and your panning of your drawing might also be difficult. It might zoom too fast or too slow. That is then why we added the mouse sensitivity button here. So if you've got a fancy mouse, you can click on the mouse sensitivity and play around with these values so that you get the perfect zoom in and zoom out for your functionality and what you require. So that is then the mouse sensitivity option that we added in there. Next is the multi-select measurements for cumulative on-screen quantities. Now what this refers to is, in the past, if you click on a measurement, it will show you the length down here. So that is 19.007 meters. However, if I wanted to see the length of this wall and this wall together, I could now click Control on my keyboard and click on both of them, and it will show me that is 39.143 meters. If I click on this slab and Control click on that slab, those two slabs together is then 1771.002 meters squared. The one slab alone is 1695.996. So that is then the multi-select measurements for on-screen quantities. You can obviously only do that with measurements that are the same. So you can do it with areas or you can do it with lengths, but you can't do it with lengths and areas. All right, so I'm sure you will agree with me that Candy is continuing to be the leader in the estimating and project control software. I thank you for your time, and I trust that you will find these features useful in your daily use of Candy. Please remember to email your local RIB-CCS office if you have any questions about these features. We will keep you informed of the next webinar, and remember, if you cannot join the selected time, then please still register and you will receive a recording which you can then watch at your own time. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you at the next webinar. Goodbye for now.